Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Ms. Devos, many of my Democratic colleagues have pointed out your lack of experience in K-12 public schools, but I'd like to ask you about your qualifications for leading the nation on higher education. The Department of Education is in charge of making sure that the $150 billion that we invest in students each year gets into the right hands, and that students have the support they need to be able to pay back their student loans. The Secretary of Education is essentially responsible for managing a $1 trillion student loan bank and distributing $30 billion in Pell Grants to students each year. The financial futures of an entire generation of young people depend on your department getting that right. Now, Mrs. Devos, do you have any direct experience in running a bank?
Senator, I do not.
Have you ever managed or overseen a $1 trillion loan program?
I have not.
How about a $1 billion loan program?
I have not.
Okay, so no experience in managing a program like this. How about participating in one? I think it's important for the person who is in charge of our financial aid programs to understand what it's like for students and their families who are struggling to pay for college. Mrs. Devos, have you ever taken out a student loan from the federal government to help pay for college?
I have not.
Have any of your children had to borrow money in order to go to college?
They have been fortunate not to.
Have you had any personal experience with a Pell Grant?
Not personal experience, but certainly friends and
Friends, I know someone.
students with whom I've worked.
So you have no personal experience with college financial aid or management of higher education. Mrs. Devos, then let's start with the basics. Do you support protecting federal taxpayer dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. So do I. Because now we all know that President-elect Trump's experience with higher education was to create a fake university, which resulted in his paying a $25 million to students that he cheated. So I'm curious about how the Trump administration would protect against waste, fraud, and abuse at similar for-profit colleges. So here's my question. How do you plan to protect taxpayer dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse by colleges that take in millions of dollars in federal student aid?
Senator, if confirmed, I will certainly be very vigilant.
Yeah, I'm asking how. How are you going to do that? You said you're committed.
The individuals with whom I work in the department will ensure that federal monies are used properly and appropriately, and I will look forward to working with you.
So you're going to subcontract making sure that what happened with universities that cheat students doesn't happen anymore?
No, I didn't say
You're going to give that to someone else to do? I just want to know what your ideas are for making sure we don't have problems with waste, fraud, and abuse.
I want to make sure we don't have problems with that as well. And if confirmed, I will work diligently to ensure that we are addressing any of those issues.
Well, let me make a suggestion on this. It actually turns out that there are a whole group of rules that are already written and are there, and all you have to do is enforce them. So what I want to know is, will you commit to enforcing these rules to ensure that no career college receives federal funds unless they can prove that they are actually preparing their students for gainful employment and not cheating them?
Senator, I will commit to ensuring that institutions which receive federal funds are actually serving their students well.
And so you will enforce the gainful employment rule to make sure that these career colleges are not cheating students?
We will certainly review that rule.
You'll review it?
You'll review it?
Enforce it?
And see that it is actually achieving what the intentions are.
Oh my God.
I don't understand about reviewing it. We talked about this in my office. There are already rules in place to stop waste, fraud, and abuse. and I don't understand how you can not be sure about enforcing them. You know, swindlers and crooks are out there doing backflips when they hear an answer like this.
Absolutely. Oh, I love Betsy Devos. I love her. She's a great character. Who's going to play her on Saturday Night Live? That's like my only question. This woman is sitting there pretending like she's Forrest Gump's mother, who cares about his education so much. That's what she's sitting there. She kept saying, my mother's heart, and I'm a mother. So they said, has your kid ever taken out a student loan? Do you have any, did you go to public school? She didn't go to public school. She has no experience in education whatsoever. Her kids didn't go to public school. She has no banking background, so she could not oversee what the Department of Education oversees, which is $1 trillion loan program for higher education. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then when she asked her about the gainful employment rule, you know what that rule is. We did so many shows about for-profit colleges, especially the ones online. And Betsy Devos, as it turns out, if you listen to this whole hearing, you would know that Betsy Devos owns a piece of K through 12 online charter schools. K through 12 online. Oh my God! As the former mother of a rambunctious 5-year-old, please send my kid to school. I'm gonna do. Oh, it's unbelievable. But here she is to education. Betsy Devos is. Well, she's to education what Betsy Devos is to education. It is an amazing thing. I mean, she is the definition of hostility to public education. It's unbelievable. And this, she makes Rick Perry at Energy look like he appointed Stephen Hawking. That's how terrible this woman is. She makes Rex Tillerson at State, look like FDR. Winning World War II. She is so terrible and so bad, and the media, barely focused upon her. They're very, interested in Tom Price, who's another unbelievable pick. I mean, just so terrible. But this woman last night, oh my God, Steve Mnuchin at Treasury is starting to look to me like a good pick, like Bernie Sanders. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. The questions, and I got to say, some of the people that questioned her. Al Franken. Oh my God, he embarrassed the crap out of her. He wanted to have a conversation about a deep debate that goes on in education about whether proficiency is the goal, meaning a third grader reads a third grade, or is growth the goal, meaning you want third graders to read at or above grade level. You want them to, you want to measure successes by growth instead of just plain old proficiency. And she didn't even understand the debate. She was completely and utterly lost in the debate. It was unbelievable. And then she was asked about sexual assault on college campuses. She actually said that Obama's guidance, there was a whole guidance issued to colleges that said that if you were sexually assaulted as a female or as male on college campuses, that your college had an obligation to you to help you report and file the complaint. Okay? And she doesn't like this. So they asked her, would you uphold Obama's guidance to schools and colleges on handling allegations of campus sexual violence? And she said it was premature of her. It would be premature if she said that she's for or against that. Is sexual assault new? What does that mean? I don't know, but here was Al Franken questioning her. And, all his committees every committee Al Franken sits on right now is involved in a hearing. So he's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between, healthcare and education. And it's like, I don't even know how his staff is doing it. I really don't, because I'm having to do it. And, quite frankly, Captain Leary is, the technical guy. I'm the content person, and I can barely do it. So he's got a staff, probably knowing Al. He's got probably a staff of 15,000. So, Yeah, when we worked at Air America, it was me and 2 other people working on my show. And Al had about 15. Oh, yeah. 10 of them were writers. And the show still was not funny. Okay, I digress.
When I first got in the Senate in 2009, I had a roundtable of principals, and one of the principals in Minnesota, and he said, we think of the NCLB tests as autopsies. And I knew exactly what he meant, because what he was saying is that the students take the test in late April. If they're lucky, they get them back in late June. The teachers can't use the results to inform their instruction. So I saw that in Minnesota, that in addition to the NCLB test, a lot of schools, majority of schools, were taking a computer adaptive test. A computer test so you get the results right away, and adaptive so that you can measure outside of grade level. And this brings me to the issue of proficiency, which the Senator cited, versus growth. And I would like your views on the relative advantage of measuring, doing assessments and using them to measure proficiency or to measure growth.
Thank you, Senator, for that question.
Okay, just a little hint. Whenever she says, thank you, Senator, for that question, she has no idea what the question is asking.
I think if I'm understanding your question correctly,
See?
around proficiency, I would also correlate it to competency and mastery, so that each student is measured according to the advancement that they're making in each subject area.
Well, that's growth. That's not proficiency. So in other words, the growth they're making is in growth. The proficiency is an arbitrary standard.
If they've reached a level, the proficiency is if they've reached a third grade level for reading, etc.
No, I'm talking about the debate between proficiency and growth. And
Yes.
what your thoughts are on them.
Well, I was just asking to clarify then.
Well, this is a subject that has been debated in the education community for years. And I've advocated growth as the chairman, and every member of this committee knows, because with proficiency, teachers ignore the kids at the top who are not going to fall below proficiency, and they ignore the kid at the bottom who, no matter what they do, will never get to proficiency. So I've been an advocate of growth. But it surprises me that you don't know this issue. And, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a good reason for us to have more questions.
Yeah, and they limited everybody to 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes and one round of questioning. And Senator Lamar Alexander said that he was doing this. He was limiting them each to 5 minutes, one round of questioning, because that's what happened with Obama's nominees. But later in the hearing, Elizabeth Warren produced some evidence that was untrue. She produced evidence that said that she would like a second round of questioning to one of Obama's nominees, and that at that time, the chairman of this committee, the Education Health Committee, said, okay, you'll be the first to go in the second round. Oops. So she said that was not the standard that was applied to Obama's nominees, but they wanted to limit the amount of time that Betsy Devos was exposed to the public because this woman is absolutely, positively, 100% the wrong person to be in charge of our children's education. She's absolutely, positively convinced that private education is the answer and public education sucks. She was even quoted by some senators as saying public education sucks. I mean, this was the most amazing thing I'd ever. And then Bernie, of course, asked her directly, do you really think that you would be here if you hadn't given, millions of dollars to Republicans?
My question is, and I don't mean to be rude, but do you think if you were not a multi-billionaire, if your family has not made hundreds of millions of dollars of contributions to the Republican Party, that you would be sitting here today?
Senator, as a matter of fact, I do think that there would be that possibility. I've worked very hard on behalf of parents and children for the last almost 30 years.
Yeah. So that would have happened, right? Somebody with absolutely no background in education, who never went to public school, whose kids never went to public school, who has no, banking background and has to administer a $1 trillion student loan program, who said to Elizabeth Warren, I'll staff it out. The oversight on the student loan program. And then she actually said later on, I wish I could have captured every moment that was cringeworthy, but she actually said later on that one of her highest goals was to collect what students owe. she was going to be tough on students and make sure they pay back these damn student loans because they owe so much damn money. And of course, Bernie Sanders said, well, what if we made, public college tuition free? Wouldn't that then relieve you of having to oversee $1 trillion student loan program? Because they would have earned their place in a college, and it doesn't matter if their parents were able to afford it or not. And these kids would not have $10,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of loans for you to oversee. And she said, that's an interesting idea. I swear to God.
Some of us believe that we should make public colleges and universities tuition free so that every young person in this country, regardless of income, does have that option. That's not the case today. Will you work with me and others to make public colleges and universities tuition-free through federal and state efforts?
Well, Senator, I think that's a really interesting idea, and it's really great to consider and think about. But I think we also have to consider the fact that there's nothing in life that's truly free. Somebody's going to pay for it, and so...
Yes, you're right.
And
you're right.
so
Somebody will pay for it, but that takes us to another issue.
I think
and that is, if I may, and that is, right now we have proposals in front of us to substantially lower tax breaks for billionaires in this country, while at the same time low-income kids can't afford to go to college. Do you think that makes sense?
Senator, I think if your question is really around how can we help college and higher education be more affordable
that's not
for young people as they anticipate.
Actually, that wasn't my question. My question is, should we make public colleges and universities tuition-free so that every family in America, regardless of income, will have the ability to have their kids get a higher education? That was my question.
Senator, I think we can work together, and we could work hard on making sure that college or higher education in some form is affordable for all young people that want to pursue it. And I would look forward to that opportunity if confirmed.
Would you?
So he's asking her in light of the fact that the man who suggested you, who nominated you to head up the Department of Education, who knows that you have no banking background, that you will be overseeing $1 trillion loan program, that you have no background in education, that you never went to public school, that your kids never went to public school, but that he was on the campaign trail advocating for tuition-free public universities. Where has she been? I don't know. Would you help me work on that so that you don't have to oversee $1 trillion? And she said, that's an interesting idea. And, we'll try to work very hard to see that people pay a decent... He says, no, that's not what I'm asking you at all. All right. So now let's go back to K through 12. K through 12, public, free public school, which we already have. Not only wasn't she ready to go with Bernie Sanders to higher education for free, but she's not willing to say K through 12 ought to be for free.
Mrs. DeVos, I really am troubled by some of the comments and things you said about public education and how you see the role of the department you've been nominated to lead now. And so my first question for you really is yes or no. That's all I want is a yes or no. Do you believe that the mission of the Department of Education should be to strengthen public education for all of our students?
Yes, I do.
Good. So can you commit to us tonight that you will not work to privatize public schools or cut a single penny from public education?
Senator, thanks for that question.
You're welcome.
I look forward, if confirmed, to working with you to talk about how we address the needs of all parents and all students. And we acknowledge today that not all schools are working for the students that are assigned to them. And I'm hopeful that we can work together to find common ground and ways that we can solve those issues and empower parents to make choices on behalf of their children that are right for them.
I take that as not being willing to commit to not privatizing public schools or cutting money from education.
Well, I guess I wouldn't characterize it in that way.
Well, okay. Let me ask you about conflict of interest.
Yeah.
President-elect Trump thinks he can resolve his financial conflicts by having his family manage his interests while he's in office. Do you think it's okay for family members to profit off of companies that are directly impacted by the decisions you will make if confirmed? And yes or no?
No, I do
Good.
not.
Well, we do know that from press reports, you and your family have invested in what you call the education industry. That includes investments in SoFi, which is a student loan refinancing company, and K-12
there
Inc.,
you have it.
which is a chain of for-profit online charter schools. You told this committee that you would sever ties with your family businesses if confirmed, but you also said you intend to return to these businesses owned by your family when you leave public service. So how is that different from President-elect
Specifics as to how
Trump's
that's
arrangement?
going to occur. It
Senator,
seems as
first
if
of all, let me be very
you and the
clear
President-elect
about
want to
any
do everything the
conflicts.
Affordable Care
Where
Act
conflicts are
does, but just do it in a
they will
totally
be
different
resolved.
way.
I will
And so
not
I'm going
be
to kind of give up on
conflicted,
trying to get
period.
at the specifics
I
of this
commit that
secret
to you
replacement
all.
plan and maybe ask you
And
about
with respect to the
about
specific
metrics,
ones
about
that you
how-
Okay,
said,
turn this whole thing off because you know what that is? That's C-SPAN. C-SPAN is always dogging me because you can't leave it on pause is what it is. Anyway, you get the gist. Her family owns a student loan refinancing company. Oh my God, no wonder she won't go down the road with Bernie Sanders to make it tuition free, the college. They own a student loan refinancing company, although she has no experience working in that company to oversee the $1 trillion worth of student loans that are out there right now. Oh my God, is she and then Patty Murray exposes that she also owns a for-profit K-12 charter school online charter school company. So, this is an interesting cabinet that the Trump has put together. This is a very interesting. I'm sure they will all serve the best needs of us. I'm sure that they wake up every morning and they think about, our 5-year-olds and our 7-year-olds and our 12-year-olds and how they can make a profit. I mean, how they could educate them. I'm sure she wakes up I'm telling you, this is not Forrest Gump's mother. This is not Sally Field. Boy, your mama sure does care about your education. No, this is not that. Trust me, this is not that. Wow, what a cabinet he put together. And then, you go from Betsy Devos's, crazy. That was crazy. That was crazy, that hearing. She wouldn't commit the really sad, some of the sad things let me take a break so I can turn off the C-SPAN and I'll play you some of the senators ask questions about children with special needs, children with disabilities, and would she promise and commit not to take money from public schools that guarantees certain rights to special needs kids? Would she guarantee that she would not take away public funding for those? And she said no, she couldn't. No, I can't guarantee. I don't. And whoa, it was just. I got to tell you, this woman. They're all looking to privatize our public tranches of money, and so you do have this free for all. It's like a money grab up there. It's like it's Moneyball up there. Everybody's grabbing for their little area that they know can be exploited because they've spent years trying to get the public funds into their private businesses. It's amazing. Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.